So oh, really? Let me stop the recording.
Want me to get going here, Sonia?
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 10th Tuesday chat. And this is the State Council on Developmental Disabilities, the Sacramento Regional Office. My name is Sonia Bingaman, and we're just happy to see you all. This is a great turnout, and it shows that there's just a lot of interest, and we appreciate that you've all been able to figure out how to get on Zoom and have this conversation together. The State Council on Developmental Disabilities is established by state and federal law as an independent state agency to ensure that people with developmental disabilities and their families receive the services and supports they need. Through advocacy, capacity building, and systemic change, SCDD works to achieve a consumer and family-based system of individualized supports and services. Our office covers the same area that Alta Regional Center covers, and that is the following 10 counties of Sacramento, Yolo, Yuba, Sutter, Colusa, Placer, Nevada, Sierra, Alpine, and El Dorado counties. So we correlate exactly with Alta California Regional Center in the counties that we represent. During COVID, we've been reaching into the community to see what the needs are, see what information is needed. We've been developing plain language and information in other languages as well. That's all located on our website, which is at www.scdd.ca.gov. I'll put that in the chat box in a few minutes, or maybe Karen, you could do that. And we've been organizing these chats, and they've really been an opportunity for us to invite people from the community, whether they're with agencies or parent groups or fathers groups or self-advocacy groups, to talk about how their agencies or their groups are responding to COVID-19 and share information. Just a great way, since we're all home, to learn about other organizations and what services they provide. We did have Alta Regional Center as a guest way back in April, was it? April, it seems like forever ago. Yeah, and we were getting our technology figured out then, so it was a little more awkward, but we're all smooth now. So we're just so glad that the Regional Center was willing to come back again. We do know that there are some of you who are from other areas in California, who, at least who registered for the call from Southern California. We welcome you. Some of these issues are obviously statewide. There are 21 regional centers throughout the state. Regional centers contract with the Department of Developmental Services through the Lanterman Act, and they are funded by the state, but they're all run as private nonprofit organizations, and so they contract independently with the Department of Developmental Services. So there are differences in how some regional centers respond to things. Some of the services they provide, in general, services are pretty similar throughout the state, but obviously there are some differences. So if you hear something today on the call, please be sure to check in with your service coordinator in your regional center to see what's happening in your area. Don't assume that it's exactly the same. Everyone's a little bit different. So just wanted to let you know that, but we are glad to have you as part of this call. The State Council has 12 offices around the state, and we've been sharing many of our trainings throughout the state, and that's why some of you may have learned about this call and may have joined. So thank you for being here. And now I'm going to introduce Lori and John. They are with Alta California Regional Center. I'll let them introduce themselves as well, but I really appreciate their willingness to be on this call to answer some of your questions. We have a long list of questions already that some of you have emailed and shared when you registered, so thank you for that. If you are talking or have background noise, I'm going to put Dee Lee on mute, and maybe that will help. Oh, I think that helped. So if you can stay on mute, for the first few minutes, we will allow you to raise your hands and ask a question, or feel free to put a question in the chat box as well. Again, it's a short amount of time till 11 o'clock, but we want to get through as many questions as we can. We will be trying to keep questions in some way general, because each of your specific situations is very specific to you and your family and the age of your child and so on. So if you don't get your question answered, please do follow up with your service coordinator. You're welcome to email me later and I can answer what I can, but then I will also be turning you over to your service coordinator or others in the community who can answer your questions. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lori and John and let you take it over here. Thank you so much, Lori and John, for being with us.
Well, we appreciate the invitation. It's always nice to be before everyone. My name is Lori Banales, and I am the Deputy Executive Director here at Alta California Regional Center. I've been here for nearly 25 years and worked as a service coordinator and manager, director of client services, kind of had my hats switched around from multiple vantage points of the regional center. We had an opportunity to have a conversation with the group in early April as we entered into this COVID season, so we're referring to it as. And little did we know that, 3.5, 4 months later, we'd still be sitting here, with businesses shuttered, with our day program shuttered, with schools not considering to reopen as the fall, is upon us. We are moving and shaking. We're evolving with each and every day, getting direction from the department on what we can and can't do to assess and meet the needs of our community. And we have to, I would be remiss if I didn't say what a wonderful partner that the State Council has been to the Regional Center and the clients that we have the privilege of meeting their needs and working with. It's been really wonderful. There's been great bright spots in all of this, shuttering and pandemic, it's really shown that people do come together. And I'm grateful for those opportunities, and I remind myself every day about the good things that have come forward. One of the great things that have come forward is this opportunity to meet remotely. It really does allow people a greater opportunity to engage in the conversations that are happening. If we had this, in our downstairs lobby, for example, we wouldn't have the people from out of our area, clearly, but we wouldn't have nearly the folks that we have present here today. So I'm grateful that you've taken the time to learn the technology and join us. So there's been a lot of things that have been going on, and I know that it impacts people at various levels, depending on their situation. I was reviewing the questions as they were coming in, and I certainly haven't read them all because I do realize there were a fury of questions that came in last minute. But I did notice that there were quite a few that had to do with education of school-aged children. And I do want to generally speak about, how we can help, to bridge that gap for families and help to get those needs met. I know these are really concerning times when your child is not engaged in a school-based setting with peers, with teachers, and the stress that brings to families. Initially, when we went into the shuttering and we sent all of our staff home, I think that was around mid-March, March 16th, and schools had shuttered, we took the immediate proactive approach to look at all of those that had current purchases of service for daycare, for respite, and for PA services. And we elevated those so that we could at least have some stopgap services in play for families that were impacted by their loved ones staying home. We've continued to look at that, and they continue to be utilized, but the planning team now has come back to meet with families and clients to really determine, were the elevated hours utilized? Were they necessary? Did they support you in the right way? And if not, they looked at, what could be changed and done differently. And in many cases, some families just said, we simply, aren't utilizing, for example, the elevated respite for a variety of different reasons. We try to look at the barriers for the access to see if we can address those. But we have modified some of those purchases of services because that money is allocated and held when we put a purchase in place and modified as we go along. But getting back to school. So, we are working with the school districts. We're working with the California Department of Education and looking at the guidance that they're providing to the districts, the LEAs, on what they're mandated to do in terms of providing an education. Special education is what we're concerned with, clearly. We're wanting to make sure that our clients and families are getting the services that are necessary. And it's been a difficult, I don't want to say battle, but it's been a difficult road to kind of go down to help families to navigate that. Our service coordinators, while they're not working in our office, are available and working from home. I see several of our staff that are on this call that are in their home offices and ready and available to access the IEP teams, which are happening in this forum like a Zoom, to look at what is necessary to meet the needs of your child in the school-based setting that is now in your home. And they are looking at ways to support people. You know, all families that have young children, regardless of a special ed component, are charged with a new way of doing things. So that part is affecting everybody with young children and education. But you layer in the special education components and it gets a little bit more confusing, hard to navigate, and you want to make sure that your child is receiving all of the IEP goals that are identified. So you have designated services, speech, OT, PT. You know, how are those being realized and done? The federal government has given the opportunity for those types of services to go remote, just like we're here doing it. And I'm imagining that many of you and your clients, your loved ones have received services in that venue. They're not wholly ideal, but they are a way to continue to be able to meet the needs of your child. And so we would support you on trying to make sure that those opportunities continued through the IEP. Each IEP is different, each child is different. And so I really encourage you, if you're having some concerns about how education will roll forward for your child, that you reach out to your service coordinator and ask them to stand beside you when you go for your IEP to make sure that you have everything you need to implement the school-based services in your home for your child. Let's see. The other piece I wanted to say as it relates to folks that are accessing supports through ABA, which might be through their insurance, it may be through the regional center. Those services with precautionary circumstances, so taking, wearing masks and taking precautionary measures, families and providers have decided to allow the in-home services to continue. And to that point, that's an individual decision, but there are a handfuls of families that are, as we continue through this pandemic, making the decision to continue services in the home, and that we would support you in that. We've been working with our providers, and John can certainly pipe in as our Director of Community Services, working directly with our providers on the measures that we're taking to ensure that they're practicing good precautions. But that is something that I do want to highlight and make available to you, is that if you are receiving any of those types of services, they can happen in the home, but it needs to be agreed upon. And that could add another level of direct service support. John, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so my name is John Decker. I'm the Director of Community Services here at Alta California Regional Center. I've been with the Regional Center just about 10 years, and I've worked as a community services specialist. I worked really closely with the State Council for quite some time as we were closing down the state developmental centers. The State Council was very supportive of the Regional Center as we went through the process of closing down Sonoma Developmental Center, Porterville Developmental Center, and Lanterman and Fairview. And so was involved in that process for quite some time. And in the last year, I've been the Director of Community Services. And it has definitely been an interesting time to work really closely with service providers, because we've had a service system that has got some really established boxes that we put services in, and that we felt really comfortable with. And now we've all had to kind of work outside the box. We've all had to look at how can we modify our services in order to be able to best meet the needs in such a changing environment. And that's one of the things for our service providers. I think, if anything, I would want to point out is just our service providers have been amazingly resilient during this process and very flexible and trying to be as supportive as possible. And in many times, volunteering to put themselves in a situation where they could be exposed to COVID-19 because they are continuing to serve people that have tested positive. And for our regional center, it's been real. It's been real since March 16th, like when Lori said we sent people home. But it's really gotten, even more real over the last month as we've really seen a sharp increase in the number of clients that have tested positive for COVID-19, the number of direct support professionals that work with our regional center that have tested positive. And so we have, what we thought was a short process of, okay, let's, send everyone home from programs. Let's not have our ABA providers go into people's homes. This will be for a few weeks. And now we're, approaching month 5, I think, shortly here of all of this. And it's really called on our providers to kind of step up and modify things. And, the families have come to rely on those certain services year after year after year to provide those supports. And so having such a radical change of responsibility of where people are spending their time during the day, as you guys all know, many of our adult our adult clients reside with their family members, and just that shift from going off to program every day and having your transportation provider picking you up, or having an ABA provider, for example, maybe coming in with their tutors into a home with the child. It's just such a shift, and unfortunately, we've been on. It's been a little unclear as to are we going to get going and get things kind of back to the way we were before, or are we going to be looking at limiting things? And unfortunately, we've seen a situation where we've still been limiting things quite a bit. I did want to touch on just a couple things related to the kind of our commitment with our providers and with our clients. And first off and State Council has been a fantastic partner with this, is that since the middle of March, we've been receiving quite a bit of what we call PPE, the personal protective equipment, which is the the masks primarily, and hand sanitizer. And so we've been distributing hundreds of thousands of pieces of that. And Sonia has taken on a whole nother job at the State Council of being the PPE representative for this part of Northern California. And so she's worked really collaboratively with some of our community partners to set up, giveaways in different places. And you guys are on State Council's mailing list, so you guys see all of these things. But I just don't want to diminish the importance of that. Of at one point there was a large financial component to trying to even get a hold of masks or even get a hold of hand sanitizer. And so being able to make that available for our clients and families, being able to make that available for our service providers so that they've got those things, I think is, an excellent commitment that, was made in partnership with State Council. That being said, we do have a drive-through giveaway over the next couple days. The information's on State Council's website and all of the social media pages as well. And we'll be giving out masks and hand sanitizer to people that come by to the regional center. And I was thinking when Lori was talking about the in-home programs, and one of the challenges has been, people not wanting to have folks in their homes actually wearing a face mask. As you can imagine, working with a young child, there's questions about, doing therapies and wearing a mask. And one thing we're really happy about, and Sonia fought to get it too, is getting clear face shields, so that we have clear face shields. So we've never been able to give those out like in large numbers. And now we have the ability to do that as well, which, being able to see the expression on someone's face when your expressive and receptive language skills are not, makes a big difference. And so again, I would really commend State Council for working with us to get those things out. Lori, there is information related to some of our vendor services and how they've been impacted. Do you think this would be a good time to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, jump right on.
All right. So that's kind of been the big question, is when are things going to go back to normal? What is normal going to look like? And I would like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of roll through some of the questions that Sonia had sent to us. And so I could kind of talk about that a little bit. So one of the things was work activity programs. That was one of the questions that came up in there. So imagine, if folks probably are somewhat familiar with work activity programs, but the feedback that we've got from the department kind of since the beginning of all of this is that, large congregate, work sites, work settings, things like that are going to need to be modified. And we already kind of knew that this was coming related to CMS and final rule, and we did have that pushed back to 2023. But we do have our HCBS specialist, Catherine Weston, here on the line. She's waving to all of you right now. But for the work activity programs, that was always going to be a challenge of how a structure like that big warehouse type setting, filled with individuals with developmental disabilities doing those work programs, was going to function kind of moving forward. And so I think what we're seeing now, and we only have a handful of work activity programs, the other regional centers throughout the state, honestly, there's not a lot that are really left. But I definitely see that we are really going to have to look closely at, when we get people back into those environments, what is the physical spacing that is available, for folks. We look at square footage of buildings. We look at, can we, possibly socially distance people. But I would say in general, work activity programs are kind of on the decline. I mean, statewide in California, there's not as many as there used to be. And, obviously more individualized job training and job opportunities, participating in competitive employment, competitive integrated employment, doing some of our paid internships programs. We really are looking at some other different opportunities. But it's tough. It's tough to lose services that you've had for a long time and you really, really enjoy. And that's what so many of our clients have been experiencing over the last few months. And again, in those particular cases, going back to that planning team and really having a discussion about what are the other alternatives, that may be available as we have, people returning back to more in-person services. It was a question specifically related to a decrease in vendor services. So have we seen a big drop in service providers saying, I'm just done. I can't do this anymore. That has not been the case. We have not run into that here at the regional center. If anything, our providers are wanting to try to figure out ways to make it work, trying to figure out ways to offer the same, if not absolutely better services than they were offering in February of 2020. But the challenge is that so many of these programs were developed a certain way. And a lot of that relates to having people close together in congregate settings. And it does make a challenge. There was some more questions about, is the regional center going to be supporting people to do more community-based one-to-one services? Those services have continued throughout this entire time. We have not, there hasn't been a kind of a moratorium on any of that type of work. And in some cases, what we've seen is some of these community-based one-to-one, like day program people, have actually been going into people's homes and providing some additional assistance. That's not everyone, but in some cases we've heard about that too. And I would imagine that that was probably very helpful for some of those folks that, wanted some in-home supports, but they weren't going to be traveling places. So, as far as what the future of day programming type services looks like, I think, we are going to see that, we're not going to be in the short term, refilling a full day program site. So you might have a site that really worked well with 30 people, but we're going to have to figure out a way for it to work, with 15 people. And there's been to allow for social distancing. And I would just say, I don't see us going back to just the way it looked like before for quite some time. This is our current reality, and I think the reality is going to last for several more months, at least. And so that being said, talking with the planning teams about what the goals of the individual are, and are there alternate ways that we can do that. I think it would probably be beneficial just for me real quickly to just run through some of the directives related to that from DDS. So first off, DDS very early on said, if there are absences in programs, the regional center can continue to still fund the services. And in essence, what that did was that created a retainer where people didn't have to lay off all of their staff because they weren't able to bill for all of the direct service hours that they were providing before. Kind of month after month, we've been kind of seeing extensions that have been put on that, and the department has actually extended that now through September 1st, which for a lot of our providers is very encouraging because, there is no return back to, you know, a full program of 30 people if you're a 30-person program, and being able to bill for all of that. And so that puts a lot of our providers in a precarious financial situation. So what
So
we've
John,
done, sorry, go ahead.
Can you talk about what the steps are being taken in terms of the vendors working with us on their reopening plans?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have kind of two things going on right now. One is trying to make sure that we get everyone paid appropriately so that they can provide the continued remote services that they've been providing over the last few months. And then the second thing is then supporting people to reinvent their programs. So those are kind of the two separate things that are going on. So right now, DDS has put out some directives and given us guidance on, you know, providers being paid through the month of September, and then what September 1 looks like. And in essence, what September 1 is going to look like is it's going to be our service providers continuing to offer what DDS is now calling alternative services. And so the alternative services are going to be these remote services that are going to be in place until these programs basically change what they're going to be doing, meaning they write new program design addendums and planning teams agree that, you know, this re-envisioned or reinvented program is what's going to be best for themselves as the client, or for their loved ones if you're a family member. So there's been some guidance. I actually sent it out to all of the day program providers on Friday on how to get themselves kind of set up to bill for these activities, and also what they're going to need to do. And so, you know, we've got several staff that are here. You know, Shirley is one of our day program staff as well. And I think Ann is on, and some other folks here from Alta. But we're really committed to working with those programs so that we're still offering really supportive services that are you know, trying to meet the goals of our clients, but also it makes financial sense. I mean, the last thing we would want to do is take this huge talented pool of direct service professionals and just have them go work at Starbucks and we don't want to lose all of that. I mean, we've built up such a talented pool over the years, and so we're really working with our providers so that we've got those services kind of poised to transition. So over the next few months, that's what I foresee happening, is making some changes to these programs with the service providers so that we can do things. And will that look more community-based? Yes. Will there be more one-to-one type services? Yes. Is that what everyone wants? Not necessarily. And again, that's when I think going back to the planning team and having discussion about what you want for a service and how you can get there with what we're kind of constructing, I think is really important. And talking with the service coordinators about that, like Lori mentioned, you know, we've got 515 employees, I think now, and we've got about 480 or so, 490 that are regularly working at home every day. But they should be absolutely available. And in a situation like this, you know, if for some reason your service coordinator is not available and you're really concerned about, you know, the service delivery and, you know, whether you're going to be able to get what you need, please reach out to that manager. It's just elevated. It's okay. No one's going to get in trouble. But it's, you know, Lori and Sonia were actually talking about this right before the call about how, you know, if things need to get elevated, they need to get elevated. We need to make sure that we're getting the needs met. And ultimately kind of the buck stops with Lori when it comes to, you know, the case management and overseeing those case management supervisors. And we have associate directors as well that are part of that role. So again, I would absolutely encourage folks to do that. In looking at,
could you look at Pamela's question that she had put there? It really does tether into what you're discussing right now. I just want to make sure
is it in the chat?
I'll go ahead and read it just so in case some other people can't see it. It says, I have an additional question about community services, particularly as it relates to providers offering community-based services who are currently supporting under variable ratio service codes, but need to support one-to-one now. Variable ratio rates don't cover the cost of one-to-one service provision. What is Alta doing to support providers in accessing service codes that truly fund one-to-one service? Building out from that, what is Alta's plan to support long-term once absence billing ends, but one-to-one is still necessary either by directive or client family preference for safety? Obviously, we want to keep this relatively general, but that's a good question that follows up on what you were just talking about.
Yeah, so those individuals that have variable ratio programs have obviously, been in contact with us. This is the reinvention time. This is the time where the providers are going to come back to the regional center and say, we were doing services like this, but the reality is, and what we know of the clients that we serve, we really want to get here. We want to go someplace else with it. And so our job at the regional center is, in essence, figuring out ways for it to work, taking the best guidance that we have from the Department of Developmental Services. One of the challenges, to be absolutely clear, is that there is no new rate mechanism that has been put in place yet for the reinvention of services. And that's one of the things the department, by allowing us to pay for alternate service delivery, which is what's going to start September 1st, kind of gives our time, in essence, it allows our day program or any non-residential service provider really to offer a very broad range of services and still be able to bill for a full day of service, even if that's a phone call that they make, even if it's a Zoom meeting that they hold, even if it's going out and dropping off face masks to people's houses. All these different activities are all going to be billable things in the interim while we do what Pamela's question is, which is switch people to, those one-to-one services that they're wanting to provide. But for our service providers, it's got to financially make sense. And unfortunately, we just don't, we don't have all the information from the department yet on what that's going to look like. And as you can imagine, we had 5,000 individuals participating in day programming, another 800 or so participating in employment services. So multiply that, we're a large regional center, but there's 20 other regional centers. So when you make these decisions related to, a new way to bill or whatever like that, it automatically impacts, tens of thousands of people and has the possibility of impacting hundreds of thousands of the, we're, I think, 365 now or something like that statewide, as far as people with developmental disabilities. And so I know the department is really looking closely at some of those things, and we're going to support our providers so that, we can get those rates in place that are really going to cover the costs of funding those services. And the department's made it clear that they want to see, wraparound type services, community-based services, one-to-one type services, and those services are going to be more expensive. And so the department's going to need to help us figure out ways to make sure we get all of our service providers funded.
Yeah, and just to clarify, when you say the department, just for those who aren't talking jargon every day like some of us do, the department is the Department of Developmental Services, and they are, again, the ones that Alta Regional Center and the other 20 regional centers contract with at the state. And they don't have the, for example, Alta does not have the ability to just change rates when they want. They are under restrictions and guidance from the department, which is DDS at the state. And so a lot of these changes take a long time because everyone's kind of waiting at different levels. So as much as all of us would love to see everything just become one-to-one, there's a lot of layers of bureaucracy and permissions and guidance that have to be given. So it's a really frustrating, challenging time, not just for individuals and families, but for programs as well.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to clarify that, it's not like we have had one site-based day program, a 30-person site-based day program that has said that they do not see offering in-person services on the site moving forward. Outside of that, we've had some other providers that have in Placer County that have talked about, not being able to institute in-person services, but that's a lot of our providers. That's a lot of our providers that are concerned about that. One thing I think is this new alternate services billing opportunity is really going to help out, I think, our service providers so that they can, keep their businesses running while they figure out how to best change their services to meet the needs of our very diverse community that we have.
Yeah. Okay. Oh wait, I'm trying to read the chats as they come in too. Robert, can you please explain this?
Special education, that one?
Yeah, I'm reading that. So it says, not trying to change the subject, however, going back to the special ed, please explain and provide specific procedures on how the regional center will be supporting special education students DDS sent out an updated FAQ 61620 that specifically stated question 4 that, and I don't know where question 4 is, that the regional center can purchase educational services for children over age 3 during the pandemic. That is a directive that is specific to early start clientele. And the over 3 is not over 3 carte blanche. It's over 3 that, or 3 that have aged out of early start during this pandemic period and have not successfully transitioned to their IEP through education based on the COVID barriers. So it is not a carte blanche across every child that's school age. So that is what that directive is referring to.
Did you, I'm sorry, Sonia or
Ms.
Karen,
Banales.
maybe you guys can drop the link to the directives in the chat.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay.
You can just go to DDS and then search directives. They just
Right there.
redid their website, so it's a little bit harder to find, but yeah, you can search.
Perfect.
Yeah, you can search.
So
Connie,
go ahead. Go ahead, Connie.
I was sorry. I was the one that sent that question.
Oh.
So specifically, is the regional center doing or implementing anything that can support school-aged IEP children or the LEAs during this COVID shut-in period?
Well, so not all. Well, first of all, we need to be super careful that we're not supplanting budgets. So the education is facing the challenges that regional centers are facing, and that is looking at how do we get people together to support children, school-aged children. And so the school districts have got to step up, and there is guidance that's been provided by the State Department of Education that very much directs them to hold the meetings, to provide the services, to look at each child individually and put forward those services. So if you're asking if that's not happening, is the regional center going to step in and be education? Is that your question?
Well, I mean, not to get into more general, I was trying to keep my question general. So school districts are mandated to follow timelines and whatnot and provide to, we understand the process. I think most parents understand the process. So the fact of the matter is related services are not necessarily being provided because the service providers are not willing to come into the homes, or they're doing teletherapy or things of that nature. So some consumers and some students are not able to benefit from those types of related services. So my question was more along the lines, is the regional center, or does the regional center plan on supporting the consumers in any way by providing those types of services during those COVID period? In other words, support or ensure that the consumer is maximized during this COVID period?
So we would have to look at each individual case, but the directive that you're referring to is early start, and those that have exited early start during that period that didn't successfully transition. And the undercurrent of that directive too is that another directive was sent by CDE to education to let them know that because this directive came from the Department of Developmental Services, it in no way takes away from your obligation to get children successfully transition from the early start. In terms of providing related services, the designated services that you're referring to in the IEP, the regional center doesn't have the authority in the Lanterman Act to do that when there is education. So you've mentioned that you're saying that they may be offering telehealth or coming into the home or not coming into the home. That's going to be what the child has to access, and it's not ideal. We get that. I mean, we're in a pandemic and we want children to be back in school, and we want them to have face-to-face services. We want to be able to have our clients being accessing day programs and all the social activities that create happy, healthy, emotionally sound individuals. We're just not at that place right now with this pandemic. So we would not be supplanting education when they have the responsibility. But we, as I said at the very beginning of this Zoom, that doesn't mean that we just kind of wash our hands and send you out there on your own. we want to go lockstep with you to education to help try and figure out what will best meet the individualized needs of each student. They're different. Everybody's different out there, and there are many students that are receiving telehealth remote services that are doing quite well. I hear about them often, and I do know that there's an equal number of kiddos that aren't doing as well in that modality. And so we want to be able to have those conversations individually at the planning team, or excuse me, at the IEP.
I see another question has come in regarding day programs. And it is, are we seeing any day program providers willing to open more facilities to provide services to all their clients that may not come back to a specific site, since the original site can now only provide services to 50% of the original client base? We haven't heard a lot about people wanting to open up new sites. Part of that is because there's a significant cost tied to leasing a property or purchasing a property. And the question about the ability to be able to serve people in a congregate setting is, you know, it's just so unsettled right now. There's not, you know, a clear picture of, okay, you know, starting September 1, it's going to look like this. And so therefore we're going to be able to use, you know, our full space to serve all these people. Instead, we've been having a lot of discussions with folks about varying times of when people are going to be attending. So talking about, you know, we I think for several years now, our site-based programs that we've been vendoring, especially some of the newer ones, you know, there's always been a really large community-based component to even the site-based, you know, licensed day program services. And so I think that is where, you know, we're going to see kind of a future of it, where you might still have that hub, or you might still have a building, you know, that you utilize, but, you know, a lot of these services are going to be done in the community. The challenge is that that's not for everyone. I mean, it really isn't. Not every individual can tolerate that amount of time outside of, you know, a place that can provide, you know, kind of care and supervision, and that's what some individuals need during the day. And so, you know, that's, again, taking it back to the planning team and having that discussion about, you know, if my current service provider isn't going to be looking at doing that moving forward, then, you know, what can you connect me to? And again, our staff are here right now and are well aware of the concerns. We've been hearing it. But getting involved in these types of conversations and sharing what your concerns are, that's really valuable to the regional center. We absorb a lot of this stuff that comes in, and it really assists us. We've been having, gosh, Lori, I think we've been having vendor meetings about every other week. We've had some type of large, like WebEx is what we use at Alta. I was telling Sonia, because we saw the huge number of people here today, that we had 181 people for our residential service providers vendor forum that we did a couple weeks ago. We had, I think, 70 or so at a day program meeting that we had last week. So there's a lot of information that we're getting from our providers. And I think the information coming from the clients and families as well. I was participating with Steve Andrews a couple weeks ago with the Sacramento County Advisory Council, and one of the members, you know, just looked me straight in the eyes and was like, "When can I go back to my program?" And I feel every time I hear that directly from someone leaves me a voicemail, sends me an email, or I'm in one of these meetings, because people's lives have just been so upended from what they're used to. And so, again, I appreciate all of you participating in this here as well, so that you can be as informed as possible and really be communicating with your current service providers, because their plans are changing all the time. I'll be just very honest with you. They're trying to cope with this just the way the regional center is and everyone else is. So, you know, being in contact with those service providers, and if you're not happy with what you're getting, if you're feeling like this is, you know, I want something that's more engaging, you know, get in touch with the planning team, you know, pull folks together and have a discussion about that. Just because alternate services are being delivered doesn't mean that your IPP, you know, goals shouldn't be being worked on, you know, right now at this time. So again, I just appreciate everyone participating in this type of forum, and again, all our providers as well.
Yeah, we have a question. Thank you, John. We have a question from Lisa. Echoing what Lori said, she works for the Yolo County SELPA special education local plan area in Yolo County, looks like. And if clients are having difficulty accessing services or not benefiting from the current service delivery, she'd encourage students and parents to reach out to their case manager and not wait until the IEP. So if there are challenges now, reach out. You can, you put that request in writing, and there needs to be a meeting within 30 days. And same thing goes for the regional center. If you have a question that you feel like the planning team needs to meet again, you can request an IPP meeting. You can request a conversation with your service coordinator. But also just to say, with everything that we've heard, there are not black and white answers. And things are changing, as we know, every day. Things might have started opening up and then closed back down. And so we know that everyone is really challenged right now and just trying to make the best of every day. So do reach out, because most of these planning meetings, they can still happen remotely right now. In some of these areas, maybe not everything can be addressed for your family member, just because of COVID, but maybe some areas can specifically be addressed in better ways. So don't hesitate to reach out to those entities, if they're still working at the school district or the regional center or Department of Rehabilitation, and have a meeting, have a discussion of what's available, what's possible, and also many people trying to be super, super creative.
Sonia, I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are folks interested in hearing what the regional center's response is when we find out that someone has tested positive for COVID? Is that something folks would be interested in? And I'll get a thumbs up if you're interested in hearing about what the regional center kind of does in those cases. And
all
if
right,
not,
speak to Elizabeth, Raymond, Karen, and Mary Bell. That's who I can see.
All right.
They say yes. And Jeannie says yes.
So
Okay.
just real briefly. So, very early on, Alta created a kind of a COVID task force, and Phil Bonet is the leader of the task force, and he pulled in Lori, myself, the other members of our executive management team, our medical staff. Some of you know we have doctors and nurses here on staff, our union representatives, people from case management. We got facilities folks, everyone together, and started talking about kind of decision-making processes and how we're going to handle the things that are going on here at the regional center. And one of the things that we found really quickly was that we were going to have people that were going to be testing positive for COVID, and what was our plan going to be. So some of you have heard about Surge, the Surge sites or Surge beds that are being available. One of our case management supervisors, Andy Ponce, who oversees our specialized services and supports unit, has kind of been overseeing our COVID Surge homes. And our regional center was really lucky. Right when this happened, right when COVID hit, we were just about to vendor a bunch of new residential care facilities. And so those and they're all different types of residential care facilities, specializing in serving people with behaviors, people with medical needs. And so immediately we were able to work with those fantastic service providers and be able to offer isolation beds for people. So people that were in care homes were able to move into those. People that were living in their family homes and the families weren't able to provide that support. I just approved one yesterday or on Friday for someone that was living with their mother and then went into the hospital and then just can't go back to their family home with that need for isolation. And so they've moved into one of our care facilities. These are short-term placements. You're not committing to residential care for the rest of your life. It's for 14 days. You go into the home and you have, kind of one-to-one staff, and you can then exit right back out of there when you don't need to be there anymore. And so our regional center has been a very heavy utilizer of those beds because honestly, we had them available. The other regional centers didn't have them. And we're actually on the verge of vendoring 8 new homes like this week, and those are going to be also be available for our clients and to support some of our families that just can't do that. And we've had this for children, and we've had it for adults as well, because we've seen COVID infections and just the need for isolation to occur. One of the things that was really concerned was we have clients all the time that go into hospitals, but when they're put in that hospital setting, community care licensing, the Department of Developmental Services, the Regional Center, California Department of Public Health, we're all really concerned about what they would be bringing back to their care home environment. And so we felt like we really needed to do these isolation placements. And it's been, I think, very successful over this period of time. So that's, in essence, kind of the regional centers. We've had, at this point, dozens and dozens that have been cycling in and out of those beds. And so we found that to be very helpful for our clients.
John, do you have a number just to give a sense to folks? I know you serve over 26,000 individuals in our 10-county area. Do you have a number of individuals that you know have tested positive?
I think we're at 50, like on Friday, right, Lori? I don't know where we're at today. 51.
We'll swing back to that in a second. Let me get the exact numbers as of today at 10 o'clock. Every day at 10 o'clock, we have to present to the department a new report. So I'll get the numbers effective today and I'll get right back to you.
Okay. John, I wanted to bring up 3 topics that came in as questions, just so we can touch on them, as I know we're running short on time here. One was the question on personal assistance and what that process is to have that support in a family situation, maybe what that is, and then what they should do to work on that or learn about that. The other is participant-directed services, and the other is what's happening with self-determination. So if you or Lori can just touch on those 3, that would be great.
Okay. I'll touch on the self-determination. I'll go backwards. Sure. So self-determination, we have a SDAC, which is our self-determination local advisory committee, which Sonia and Karen and I can't see everybody who's on the call, but we have a nice group of individuals that have been very engaged in the process of self-determination in our regional center. We've been slowly bringing people on. We're doing a lot of orientations. When our initial draw was 179. And there were many folks that while they had submitted interest in the lottery, when it really came down to it and they went through the orientation about what the requirements were, they felt for themselves that it wasn't the right time. And so many folks backed out, and that really caused the department to look across the state to go, oh goodness, there's quite a few regional centers where there were numbers of folks that had said, not right now. So they did a second draw, and they overdrew this last time because they felt like, let's go ahead and bring more on, and in hopes that we can shake it out and get to the numbers that we had identified statewide. And so they did another 80 draw for us, and of those folks, about 34 have also determined that they're not quite ready yet. So we're slowly moving through it. We're continuing to do orientations. The COVID pandemic has not slowed us down in terms of the orientations. We've gone to Zoom meetings. We've gone to WebEx meetings. We're doing things one-on-one. We're doing them in groups. We're doing them in Spanish. And sometimes we have one person in the meeting, and sometimes we have 3, and sometimes we have more than that. But they're continuing on, and our training department and our associate directors are taking the lead on that. Additionally, we're continuing to train our service coordinators on person-centered thinking and practices. We're really, we benefit from 2 people on staff who have gone through the certification. Catherine Weston, who waved a moment ago, and she can wave again. She is certified to provide trainings, and as well as Cindy Lay, who is our employment specialist, and they are doing some trainings. We had things that were scheduled prior to COVID that needed to be canceled, but we're not gonna stop moving forward because we're not in the office. So we're just looking to do things differently. But in terms of people who have what we're referring to as flip the switch in the system, so they are no longer in the regular service system, they're on the SDP. We have 3 that are fully on board. We've got 12 that are in process for getting their person-centered plans together. We've got 4 people who have completed their budgets and are moving through. We've got 2 in process. So everybody's at these different stages, but we really do have a slow and steady a movement forward. And the people that are electing to go forward are really the pioneers for the system, and we applaud them for taking the risks and the successes that will come with that. In terms of barriers to COVID, some folks that don't want to move forward with quote unquote flipping the switch and coming out of regular funded services is because they're fearful that in the COVID pandemic they're not going to be able to secure people independently outside of regional center system to provide those services, and they don't want to be held out there without anything. So they are purposefully pumping the brakes to hold back until we move through this. We support everybody in their individual decisions on where they're at in this process. If people are wanting to go gangbusters and move quickly, we're right there beside them. Early on, we had to wait till the FMS agencies, the fiscal management services and the person-centered thinking folks were ready to come on board. I mean, we were lagging in the supported services that were necessary to bring people on, but I think we've arrived at a place, especially with the numbers that are coming forward, to support them should they be ready to move more quickly. So that's self-determination. PA services, the question specifically, Sonia?
What is the process to request this and make it happen? How do you hire a personal assistant? What hours are available? Can this be used in place of day programming time?
Okay, so a lot of that is going to be individually broken down based on assessment, but just the hover view of that is that personal assistant services in this COVID time have been used as a support in lieu of daycare for adults. So parents that are either working remotely from home but can't give the attention to a loved one who's an adult, well, actually 22 or older. Anybody who is under 22 can receive daycare services. So they need, support services, care and supervision to make sure that their safety is in play while they're at home. So if families are out working or in the home working and can't give 100% attention to their loved one, then the daycare or the PA services were increased. And that was in the early COVID time. So back in March, when I said we did a unilateral proactive elevation of those services, it was to provide that support. PA services can be looked at to provide a lot of different things, and there is a directive under participant directed services that the department had sent out to help provide another avenue for families to support their loved ones during this time. Now, again, these directives are all, they have timelines that expire. These are not something that moves forward into, the future. So they're really a stopgap to get folks through this time. So with those participant directed services, we already had the ability in the regulations for respite daycare, transportation, nursing services. They went ahead, the department, when I say they, went ahead and did a directive that added the ability for participant directed services, and I will explain what that is in a moment, for personal assistance, what we're talking about, PA, for independent living services, as well as supported employment. So the participant directed services provides the family, the client, more autonomy in who they select to provide a service. That person would come in and identify what role they would play to support the client in their goal to achieve whatever blank. So independent living skills, somebody wants to, manage their budget, wants to learn how to cook, wants to learn how to put a grocery list together, wants to, figure out how to do their laundry, fill in the blank. These are the goals. So then you walk back and the family says, oh, I'm going to hire somebody to do that rather than, link to an agency right now. And we'll do it from our family circle or someone we know. In the directive, it is very clear that spouses of clients or their parents are not able to provide those services directly. That is not true on the supported employment, but I was on the phone with the department this morning because I wanted to get further clarification just to make sure I didn't misspeak today, because I knew this question would come. As it relates to supporting somebody in supported employment, the intention of this directive was for people that were actively employed pre-COVID, that may have lost their direct support person for the employment job services. And in order to continue to work with support, that a parent or a family member, somebody could come in to continue that support. It really wasn't the intention of the directive to have somebody come on board to go out there and pound the pavement to find a new job for somebody. But again, those would be discussions that would happen at the planning team level if there were considerations that somebody wanted to have looked at and determined on whether or not the directive could hold them forward on that. Again, underscore, these are all time limited. And so if there were anybody that was going out to search for a job or to have any of these services in place, it is time limited and they would end. And so anybody that you would hire into these positions would need to know on the outside that that they would end, that we would be going back to the traditional model and service code provision.
Thank you, Lori. Now that was a lot of new concepts, I think, for some people. So please follow up with your service coordinator to learn more about these things. Feel free to contact me. John just generously put his email and Lori's in the chat for follow-up questions. But again, your primary contact is your service coordinator. I do want to launch a poll real quickly. I know we're just over. Lori or John, if you need to leave, thank you so much for your time. But I'd love if everybody could stay on for just 2 more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can
go
I
ahead.
say one last thing?
Absolutely.
I do have to go to another meeting, but I wanted to say, as it relates to the directive on the PA and the ILS and the supported employment, it is in the departments, on the department's website, the link Sonia provided, and it's a March 30th, 2020 directive. And so certainly take a peek at those, and then you know, have the discussions with the planning team if there's something in there that you think would serve you right now. It does expire today. I did bring that to the department's attention. I am certain that it will be extended at least another 30 days. It's got very, very low fiscal impact, and so I don't think that they will balk on letting it expire. That I'm certain it'll move forward, but it really does have an expiration date of today.
Thank you, Lori. I'm going to launch a poll. Also,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you, John. So
Excuse
thank
me,
you,
Lori, do
everyone.
you have the numbers for the people who are infected?
Oh gosh, yeah, let me see if she sent them. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't just get myself out of here.
Oh, you're still here.
And while she looks that up real quick, I just want to note, you know, I did put a note in there in the chat box because there was several questions related to technology and the lack of access that some folks have. Lori and I seem to talk about this about every other day. It is a huge issue for us. Statewide, all the community services directors for all the regional centers met about it on Friday to talk about a path forward and what we can do. So just stay tuned for more information about that. We'll definitely, you know, the state council will be aware when we look at getting kind of a program going here. But that's a huge issue for us right now that we're trying to get squared away.
Okay, I have the numbers, but I also related to that, one of our associate directors was on a call yesterday, and she sent me a link, and I'll have to find it and I'll send it to Sonia so she can post it for you all, where there is available some technology for people to, if they're having difficulty being able to access anything remotely because they don't have the equipment. There was a link on how to get some free equipment. So I'll get that to you, Sonia, so that you can post it on the website. And you'll have it. In terms of our numbers as of today, we have 55 clients who have tested positive. And we've had, sadly, 5 deaths to date that have been associated with a positive COVID. 4 of those individuals came from one facility in the last couple of weeks, and you may have heard on the news, the Woodland facility, very sad. And 35 direct service providers have reported to have been positive for COVID. These are all, I mean, we know the deaths clearly, we know the clients that have tested positive, and we're hoping that we're getting all the DSPs that are testing positive out there, but it's really all contingent on folks letting us know. In terms of our staff, we have not had anybody to date that has reported a positive COVID test.
Thank you so much for those updated numbers. I'm going to launch a poll. If you could quickly answer that question, that would be wonderful. So tell me if you can see it. We'll see your, did you learn something about the importance of engaging family members? Oh, hello, I didn't change my question. Just pretend like it says, did you learn something about the regional center and all of the issues going on now? That was from Raymond's chat about the Dadvocates group. So we'll just pretend like it's about today's topic. So many layers that we have to work on updating on each of these. Thank you all for answering so quickly. And the second question is, are you satisfied with this activity? And again, while you're answering the questions, we will be trying to twist John and Lori's arm into having another one of these, maybe in a month or so. There's so many questions that weren't, able to get answered in our 1 hour. But please always be in touch with your service coordinator. Feel free to call me anytime or email me, set up a time. With some of you, I've had hour-long conversations about various services and options and things going on. Catherine Reston is available, right, Catherine? Many staff are on here from the regional center, and they deal with different parts of the regional center, whether it's employment services or day program services or residential services. So there's always someone to reach to get more questions answered. I'm going to end the poll because it looks like most of you have answered it, and I'm going to share the results. I don't know if you can see those. Can you see them, Catherine? Okay, thank you. I'm going to take a quick. All right, as most of you know, we are federally funded, and all of our activities, we have to show what we do. So that's proof that we had a meeting and you were all part of it. So thank you so much. So I want to let you know our next, stop sharing the results. Okay, so our next Zoom chat is August 4th, and that will be with Danielle from Liberty Dental. And she is just this incredible person who does wonderful trainings on dental care, and it's really designed for self-advocates, for people with developmental disabilities. She's just engaging and talks about brushing and flossing and good ideas for snacks that are better for our teeth than other snacks and drinks. So she's just a fabulous person with a lot of energy. So I hope that you can help your family member to be on the call. And if you work with folks who have developmental disabilities, if you can please assist them to be on the call. I'll send out the link again soon. And it's really meant for them. It's something that we've been doing over the last year in many of our day programs, where we've been going in and doing these trainings and talking about dental care, really trying to do something that's preventative and helping people have good routine care. As we all know, access to dental care is a challenge. So it's one thing that we've identified that we can work on, and that's prevention, while we also work on other issues of trying to increase access to dental care. So please join us August 4th. I'll be sending out that link again. And then August 25th is going to be an opportunity for you to meet the new Office of Clients' Rights Advocate for Alta Regional Center. She's with Disability Rights California, and that is Kelsey Hancock. She replaces someone you may have known previously, was Brittany Gillespie. And so she's going to be talking about IPPs, the IPP process, appeal rights, and so on, some tips for IPPs. So please join us for that. Zoom chat. That's August 25th. And again, I'll be sending out these links soon. So with respect to your time, thank you all so much. This call, I just got the question, is recorded. It is recorded, and I will be uploading it to YouTube later today. All of our chats are on YouTube. You can search California DD Council. So California DD as in Developmental Disability Council, and you'll see our webpage, our channel there, and all of the chats, most of them have our logo as kind of the space holder for them. So as you scroll through our channel, you can see there should be 8 or 10 there that are uploaded, so you can reference them later. So again, thank you all for joining, and hope to see some of you at the PPE drive-through this tomorrow and Thursday at Alta Regional Center. And stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.